Hi, I'm Jo Clark, and thanks so much for joining me today. This is the Redefining Midlife podcast, a podcast designed for the 40-plus woman who is determined to challenge society's myths and beliefs around midlife. It's for the woman who is inspired and ready to define midlife her way. Join me each week as I chat to health and wellness experts for up-to-date information on how to live well as some special conversations with incredible everyday women redefining what midlife can look like. Here's to making our next half of life even better than the first. This is the last of the recaps that features another two popular episodes. And as I mentioned a couple of weeks ago, to celebrate turning 55, I decided to have some recap episodes that will lead us into a very special celebration for episode 55. And today I'm featuring Letetia Berthelsen from episode 26. Letetia openly and bravely shares not one but two devastating life experiences that have shaped the life of her and her family forevermore. And you'll also meet Melina from episode 20. Mel is an absolute firecracker of a woman with a long career in fashion. And in our conversation, she openly shares her life journey so far. And she also shines a light on body image and how she helps women to understand, accept, and love the body they're in. As always, share the episode with a friend who you know would enjoy it. And it would mean the world to me if you would leave a rating and a review, because this helps the show to reach more people just like you. Enjoy listening to these amazing women. Welcome, Letetia, to the Redefining Midlife podcast. And as we are friends, it's going to be, at times, it's going to be probably a little bit more personal, that we can say things to each other that I may not ask or a guest may not respond in a certain way. So I really thank you for this time that you're going to be giving us today. And we're going to be sharing some really personal things. So I also thank you in advance for your bravery. And I know how honest a woman that you are. So you're going to say it as it is. And we're going to strap ourselves in and have you take us on this journey.
Thanks, Jo. It's a really great opportunity, I think, to sort of share probably the last 10, 15 years of my life. And if it can help someone understand what I've gone through, may help them in some way, that's the positive out of this, I think. Yeah, I'm not very good at selling myself, but yes, it'll be very raw and straight to the point.
So you and I met through the friendship of our sons, our boys who were away at boarding school together. And I've only come to know you as the amazing woman that you are over the last probably less than 10 years. And I've only heard a few stories of the past and your past life. And I'm busting to find out what younger Letetia was like in her earlier years. What was that time of life like for you?
Well, my younger years were just living life to the fullest and not really having too much of a plan in front of me, just having a good time with my friends and working. I didn't have any aspiration of going off to university. I think looking back, I always wanted to sort of maybe meet the right man, settle down and have children and just work and be involved in your community. So with that, I had a couple of heartaches and heartbreaks and swore off men altogether. And then took myself on a P&O cruise and had the best time. So when I got back off the P&O cruise, they had lost my luggage. My flatmate had moved out. And another flatmate had moved in. And unbeknownst to me, that flatmate that moved in had broken up with a friend of mine. And while I was on the cruise, she had met a man from Mundubra. So she called in and said, "What are you doing on the weekend?" And I said, "Oh, not much. They've lost my luggage, so I can't really do much." And she said to me, "Well, how about you get in the car with me and come to Taroom Camp Draft?" I thought, oh, well, I've never been to a camp draft, so off I toddled. Well, I was the only woman there in a pair of shorts, and thank God they were denim shorts, because honestly, I was really out of my comfort zone. I had no idea what they were doing at a camp draft. So for those that don't know, it is one of Australia's biggest horse sports, and they chase a beast in the yard. Then they've got to do a figure eight outside the yard around pegs and put it through a gate. And unbeknownst to me, that's where I met Mark. He eyed me off from a distance. I had no aspirations of meeting a man, so I promptly sat myself down at the bar at 10 o'clock and proceeded to have a bit of fun. And then that night was the 20th of March, 31 years ago, I think now. And I remember having a slow dance with Mark. And then we went back to where our swags were. Never slept in a swag. And my girlfriend decided, see you later. I'm going to go and check out my new man from Mandubba, and left me standing there with this swag rolled up and Mark standing beside me. So we sat around talking for a very, very long time until the sun came up, and the rest is history. So
he must have been fairly smooth back then, hey? Oh, not that he's not smooth now. Sorry, Mark. I'm sure.
Yes, and then from there on, back in those days, it was telephone calls.
Yeah.
No mobile phones. So we used to phone each other, and then my friend and I used to travel to Mandubba on weekends. And
so how far was that for you? Was that?
From Billawilla to Mandubba is about 2.5 hours. And we'd meet at the local pub in town. Mark had come in from town, pick me up, and then drop me off on a Sunday. And then my friend got into university, and then I just travelled down by myself. Tried to learn as much as I could about grazing life on the farm, living on a farm, and so that's how that all started. So backwards and forwards, a bit of a long distance relationship, I suppose you would say. And we did that for about 3 years before he popped the big question, and the rest is history.
Oh, that's so. And in that time, you've raised 3 boys.
Yeah, we have 3 beautiful sons. It is the biggest achievement of my life. I get very emotional when I talk about my family and my boys, because they are my world. I probably would fall on a sword for them. If I had to give up a kidney all my life, I would hands down do that for them. And they're my rock. They're my everything. So yeah.
Oh, that's really special. So we've both experienced firsthand lots of those positive things that happen when you live a life on the land, but it's not always rosy. And we've discussed some of those things. But you and your family went through a really, really incredibly difficult time back in 2012 when your husband, Mark, had a very serious accident. Can you share with us what happened then?
Yeah. So back then, Mark and I were in partnership with his brother and my sister-in-law in an orchard. We also had our grazing business. We also ran a Charolais stud on the side, not on the side, as part of our business as well. Mark also looked after his parents' grazing entity as well. So he was a very busy man, driving a truck from the orchard to the packing shed. So just a bit of a backstory into his accident. So we also had country in Chinchilla. So we used to send our bats over to Chinchilla to grow out. So he was over there mustering with his father, and they'd just finished mustering. His father took the load down to the feedlot, and Mark was putting the cattle away back into the other paddock. So we had 2 paddocks that was divided by a road, which was only used by our neighbour at the end twice a day, once in the morning and once of an afternoon, picking kids up off the school bus about 500 metres away. And our 2 gates were bordered his front gate, or back gate, I suppose. So this one day, I just phoned Mark to say, how you going? How you travelling? What time can I expect you home? And he said, I'm just pushing them back over. I'm just at the gate now, and I shouldn't be too much longer. And then next minute I hear him yelling at the dogs. just, get over. And he's whistling at the dogs at the gate. And I said, oh, well, sounds like you're a bit busy there. I'll let you go. So what had happened was the cattle had blown out on him and started going up the road. So he then had to jump. Well, what we think has happened, because he doesn't have any memory of it, is that he's jumped on his horse. He's got in front of them and turned them back around. But as he was coming back down that road, Chinchilla is known for its melon hole country. And we tend to think that his horse has had a tumble in one of the melon holes and had actually rolled on his head. And he's very lucky to be alive, because that particular day the neighbour was going up the road to pick the children up, and he saw Mark's dog just at the corner of his eye, and he said, oh, Mark must be mustering over here, and thought, what is that dog licking? Or, had its head down. The dog was actually licking Mark's face because he had vomited, and if he hadn't seen him, wouldn't have seen him in the grass, would have driven straight past him. Wow. If he hadn't seen the dog, Mark would have died then and there, because he would have choked on his own vomit or aspirated. And so from there, they got the ambulance to him, and then I was working in the packing shed of our orchard at the time, and it was about 5:30 of an afternoon. Mary, my sister-in-law, come running over to say, Mark's had a horse accident. They're getting the ambulance to him. They're taking him to Toowoomba. Lane was at home at the time. The two boys, Luke and Adam, were at boarding school. So Luke must have been year 10, Adam was year 8, and Lane was at home. So I had actually dropped Lane at home, went back to the shed to pack the truck for it to go with a load of fruit. And I've just said to Mary, because she come running over to me to say Mark's had his accident, and they're taking him to Toowoomba. So Mark's a very competent horse rider, and I just thought, oh, yeah, righto. He's had one really bad horse accident before where he sort of busted his pelvis once before, and I thought, oh, yeah, Mark's tough. He's right. I'll just jump in the car and I'll take off to Chinchilla. So, and I did ask Mary to go and get Lane and, look after him. So by the time I got to Chinchilla, I walked into the emergency room and I was just literally slapped in the face. And from that moment, walking in, our world started to spiral out of control. And I'm a very controlled person. I need things in place. I have lists. I do things like this. And when something like this happens in your life and you can't control it, it is very hard to fathom what was going on, because when I walked in, Mark's head was actually swollen and he had big black eyelids, like purple. I knew he was all right spinal wise, because he kept coming in and out of consciousness saying, I need to go to the toilet, I need to go to the toilet. I had his father and his sister in the room as well, and the nurse was trying to keep him still. Anyway, I ended up rousing on him and said, you can't go to the toilet, I need you to keep still. So at that point I knew things weren't too bad. But when I got there, they said, we're not taking him to Toowoomba, he's going straight to Brisbane, we're airlifting him out. I went, okay, righto. And the whole 2 hours of driving to Chinchilla, I was in and out of service, so I tried to get onto my mother and she wouldn't answer the phone. Come on, Mum, because I have a very close relationship with my mother. And she always grounds me, and I needed this grounding. And I remember pulling up at Dar Creek, which is a little service station, to go to the toilet, wash my face, have a chuck, because, just your thought process. And when you had no service and you couldn't talk to anyone, I couldn't even, we used to phone each other all the time and just vent the day's activities or whatever. Could not do that. And I kept phoning Mum, no answer. And then my stepfather eventually answered the phone and he said to me, I said, oh, Mum home? And he said, yeah, she's just walked in and had, bone graft on her jaw, remember? She just had surgery. And I've gone, oh, shit, that's right. Oh, okay. He said, what's wrong? And I said, well, is she able to talk? And he said, oh, no, not really, love. I said, well, okay. You don't mind putting her on, though. Can I just have, he's going, what is the matter? And I just said, Mark's had a horse accident and it's not good and they're taking him to Brisbane. Well, she soon learned how to talk with the bone graft on the jaw. And I said, I don't know much else than that. And I said, I've got to get myself to Brisbane because I wasn't allowed on the flight. We learnt later the reason why I wasn't allowed on the flight was because they didn't think he would even make the flight, survive.
Oh, wow.
Flight. Yeah. So once they got him in the air, I thought, oh, Christ, I hate driving in Brisbane. I don't even know my way around Brisbane. And fortunate for me, I had my auntie that lived in Brisbane, and we're quite close as well. So I phoned her, and she is an ICU nurse trained. And I said to Davida, hey, just wondering if you can help me out. I'm just going to come into Brisbane, be there in a couple of hours. I said, Mark's had a major horse accident. I said, Davida, his head is swollen and he has the biggest, purplest eyes. I've never seen anything like that. And she said to me, are you sitting down, Bubba? Because she calls me Bubba. And I said, no. She said, I need you to sit down. And I sat down on the hospital steps at the front of Chinchilla there, and she said, he has sustained a major head injury. He has fractured his head. And what happens is the blood pours into the eyelids, and that is what we call raccoon eyes. She said, you're going to be down here for a long time, not just weeks, honey. You're going to be down here for months. I've gone. I said, well, can I meet you at the hospital? And she said, we'll meet you in Toowoomba. So I had to, the hardest thing was to tell the boys.
Yes.
And at the time I had got on to the housemaster and I said, I need Luke to have his phone on him. I told him what had happened and I said, I need to call in and see the boys before I go on to Brisbane. And I said, it's going to be midnight when I get there. And he was fine. The school was great. So I called in, saw the boys, gave him a briefing, and then jumped in the car with Davida and we went into the PA. So going into the hospital, I was met with a nurse and a doctor, and they sat down and they said that he has sustained a head injury. They've put a probe into his head to monitor the swelling, and he said the next 48 hours are critical. If we can get Mark to survive that, we've got some chance of him returning home. I just remember thinking, and we were in a small room. I don't understand why they're going to put you in a small room because the walls just felt like they were crushing my chest. And the male nurse at the time said to me, Mrs. Bertelson, are you okay? Because I must have went white. And I said, no, I'm not. And I said, I need a toilet. And he took me to the toilet. And as I'm walking up the corridor, I sort of lost balance and he caught me. And then I went to the toilet. I had a bit of a cry. I washed my face. And I remember looking at myself in the mirror and going, Jesus, love, take a teaspoon of cement. You've got to toughen up here. So I sucked it up, went back, and they were moving into the ICU. And then we got up there a couple of hours later, and Davida was on the phone to Mum, early hours. And I remember walking past Dee to go to the toilet, and I overheard her saying to Mum, I've seen the scans. It's not good. You need to get here because he's not going to pull through this, and Letetia's going to need to. And, I just collapsed in the toilet again and, had a little mini moment and then came out. And Mark was in an induced coma for 3 weeks. And I walked into his room and I stood there and I said to him, if you've got to go, you go. well, I fully understand. But if you are going to come back to the kids and you need to step up to the batting plate and have it's all in. It's our family motto. If you start something, we finish it. So if you're going to come back to us, you make sure that you're ready to fight. I said, but if you've got to go, you've got to go. And I don't know if that helped. I'd like to tend to think it did, because the very next day when I was beside his bed, the doctor came over and said, we need to have that family meeting. And I'm thinking to myself, I can't do this. Like, how do you plan your life without your significant other? And we walked into the room and sat down, and he said to me, I don't know what's happened, but overnight he has started to come back. Miracle, I think. So, yeah. And then every day after that was, his eyes would open up the next day. And then the next day, his eyeballs were moving around the room. The next day, he was squeezing hands. And yeah, so there was progression every day. So you just had to take a positive out of the negative every day when you walked out of that hospital, because, yeah, you just got a little bit of your soul was just sucked away when, you're there all day. And yeah, it was awful, Jo. Absolutely awful.
I can only but imagine how horrific that must have been for everyone in the family. For you as a wife, to see your husband going through something like that, and then thinking about what happens if he is gone. It would have been just horrendous. But thank God that didn't happen. It's made you both stronger and your family stronger as well. So that's, if there's any good in something like that happening, that is one of the incredible things.
And that's the beauty. Looking back now, it's made us a stronger couple. It's made us stronger parents. It's cemented our relationships within ourselves and our children, and that's the positive. I mean, I really don't think that if Mark had his accident, we would probably have we'd have a good relationship with our children, but I think that has really helped. Yeah, and I'm a big believer. You got to take a positive out of a negative wherever you can.
So you've gone through hell and back more than once over the last couple of years, and you've just told one huge, massive life story that I think for many, they would hope that would never be open, that book would never be opened again. But you had been diagnosed with breast cancer. And I know that your story that you're going to share with us is going to have an impact on anyone who listens. And without being overly dramatic, it could actually save someone's life, in that it might get them to check their breasts themselves or be really vigilant with that. So can you tell us how your cancer was detected?
Yeah, so life was going really well, Jo. Like, everything was just beautiful. The boys had, finished school. They were on their own career paths. Lane had started his apprenticeship. Adam was halfway through his apprenticeship, and Luke was in the territory doing his thing. And he'd met a beautiful girl and brought her home, and we were looking forward to their wedding in March. And so the backstory there was 18 months prior to being diagnosed, I play a bit of squash. I have done for a long time. So I took a whack to the boob playing squash, and a couple of months later I noticed that there was a bit of a lump there. So I took myself off to the doctor. Actually, I had an mammogram done and it came back clear. So that was like September, October. And then in January that year, I noticed the lump. So off to the doctor, and he sent me away from a mammogram and a ultrasound, and it came back as a 5 mil cyst. So that was all good. Life's going on, working, just enjoying life, getting ready for Luke's wedding. And then 12 months later, it started to get a bit sore. And I thought, it's got to be hormonal, because it wasn't sore all the time. It was just around that time of month, and it did sore. And then we had Luke's wedding, and I just kept putting it off. for about 3 months. It started to ramp up. And then Easter came, and Good Friday, I remember, because that night I just could not sleep. It was that painful. And one of my very dearest friends is a midwife, and I saw her the next day, and I said, hey, you know that lump I told you about? Jesus, it gave me curry last night. I could not sleep. It was that painful. And she said, can you get yourself to the doctor first thing Monday? Yeah, okay. So come Monday was my RDO. I'm in doing book work for the business, and she phoned me and she said, have you made that appointment yet? I said, no, I'll get to it this afternoon. I'm just doing the BAS at the moment. And she said, if you don't make it, I will. You need, I thought, okay, this could be a bit serious. So off I toddled in the doctor. He had a poke and said, oh, yes, definitely a lump there. Mark could feel a lump. I could feel a lump. And then he sent me away again for an ultrasound. So I'm going over to Bundaberg thinking, yeah, ultrasound, mammogram, it's a cyst. It's probably just growing in size and it's on a nerve sort of thing. I should have known something wasn't right when I was shopping and they phoned me to say, we need you to come back to have a needle biopsy. Okay, righto. Something funky with this cyst going on. So off I go back in, have the needle biopsy, and off I go. And then I get a phone call from this doctor's surgery, and they said, oh, Dr. Ung would like to see you about your results. So, oh, yeah, okay, Elaine, which is his wife, and the receptionist. I said, oh, I've got to have a tooth pulled out today, so is it really that important? Because, like, you know how many times you've been to the doctor and they just tell you it's good, it's just a cyst, like, you know. And she said, I'd be cancelling that root canal, Letetia. And I said, okay, I'll see you in an hour. And I remember going in, sitting down, and he said, I don't have good news for you, Letetia. He said, it's breast cancer. And I've gone, oh, yeah, okay. All right, we'll just get this out. And he said he was reinforcing to me, it's not good news, Letetia, it's breast cancer. And I said, does that mean I've got to have chemotherapy? And he said, oh, most definitely. He is 88, I might add, this doctor. Yeah. And he said, oh, most definitely. And when he said that, I thought to myself, oh, my God, it's just got real, Letetia. So, yeah, anyway, I walked out. And he said, you need to get to the specialist, I'll refer you. And I remember walking outside, phoning Mark and telling him, and he got quite upset because, you know, when you tell people you've got breast cancer or the word cancer, they tend to think that it is death row. And I said, it's all okay, don't worry about it. I've just got to, you know, go and see the surgeon in Brisbane. We'll get through this. And then I phoned Mum, and when I phoned Mum, that's when I got a bit upset about it too. So then it was straight into see the surgeon in Brisbane on the Monday. He referred me to the oncologist the Thursday. The following Monday, I was back having chemo education. Surgical consult Tuesday afternoon, surgery Wednesday for the porta cath, wheeled out of hospital at 5:30, back for first chemo treatment at 8:30 the Thursday the next day. So I had 6 months worth of chemo, had a month off, then surgery, I had a month off, then radiation, and 6 months of tablets. So, yeah, that was pretty tough going, doing the chemo. Never ever been so sick in all my life. So it pays to do your regular checks, because it was stage 3, and if we hadn't done regular checks, another couple of months down the track and we could have a different story. So I went from working full-time to being pretty well housebound for 6 months, and that was probably the hardest to deal with, because, like I said, I'm a very social butterfly, and I feed off other people's energy. And when you just go week to week having chemo, and all you can do is pretty well drag yourself from the house to the car, to the chemo chair, back to the car and back to the house for 6 months. That paid a big part of, mentally. And then losing your hair was another big mental struggle as well, because I thought, well, I'm not going to let cancer, ruin my life. I'm going to be in control of it. And I went and got my hair cut short, and then when it was falling out in the shower, that was like, oh my God, this is really happening, isn't it? So, and then the other struggle I had too was when I did actually go to town and have a turban on, it was the people's looks were like, oh, we're so sorry. Yeah, you're going to, it's not good news for you. Like you couldn't get away from it once you lost your hair. It was in your face then. And
it's shining lights, isn't it? Oh, look at I've got cancer, and all you want to do is be normal, but you've got
and you just can't. You can't be normal when you're that crook. And then I got really crook where I had to spend a week in hospital and a night in ICU because my blood counts got very low. And I ended up almost having organ failure out of it too, another couple of hours, and it would have been another different story too. So sometimes you just got to look at the positive and think that, these are the cards that have been dealt. So you just got to, I learnt a lot of tools when Mark had his accident. It was minute by minute, hour by hour, then day by day, then you can work week by week, month by month. And that's just how I processed it, I suppose. We just take it, as it goes.
You've been an absolute inspiration for me, and I'm sure people who listen to this, they're going to get a lot out of it. So thank you very much for being so vulnerable and being so honest in sharing Mark's journey and how you cope with that, and also what you've just gone through.
I just hope that if any listeners, male and female, go and check themselves tonight in the shower.
Yep.
It's not just women that come down with breast cancer either. So
that's exactly right.
Remind the men to check their fellas out too.
And on that, we shall leave. So thank you so much, Letetia. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, Jo. Yeah.
Now on to today's special guest, who I know you are going to love. Melina Bagnato's mission is to help women understand, accept, and love the body they're in. She wants other women to feel confident with their own personal style and feel radiant and fabulous as they step out of the house. And who doesn't want a little bit of that in their life? Mel and I became friends in 2022, and I was drawn straight away to her gorgeous, magnetic personality. There is so much to Mel. Not only is she an incredibly accomplished businesswoman, she's also an amazing woman. And just like us, she's navigating her way through some of those messy changes and challenges that come as we redefine our middle of life. In today's episode, we cover a lot of topics. And as you'll discover, there wasn't much left off the table. Enjoy our chat. Your career to date has been totally devoted to fashion. So how did you decide that fashion was going to be your life's work?
It's a really great question. It's not something I really was like, that is my life's work, but growing up in a fashion family, my dad is a menswear designer and has been for over 45 years. And I pretty much grew up around fashion. My childhood, as a baby in a bassinet, I was in my dad's workroom watching him sew. As a preschooler, I was at the factory climbing rolls of cardboard. I can still remember the smell of what the workroom smelled like for the patterns for the garments, the sewing machine sound. My school holidays were cutting things and making it. So I grew up around this fashion, and it's a bit like the mafia. Once you're in, you're in. You can't get out. And that's what fashion's like. And I decided, and I just loved it. I loved how my dad, I would watch, as a child, I grew up in a menswear store, and that's pretty much did my work experience there, the cleaning and the steaming and things that are, well, I don't know if young 20-year-olds do this anymore, but that's what, back in the day, you do for work experience. So you were more attractive to be employed. But I just loved the way my dad would transform a man's confidence. And the passion he had for it. So I just fell in love with that. And then the flip side of that is my mum, she wasn't in the fashion, but she was a hairdresser, and she took such great pride in the way that she put herself together. And I used to love the way she'd smell, and I loved the way she painted her nails, and she always had her face on and her hair done. So that fused with my dad's passion to help someone else feel good. I just fell in love with that whole concept of how fashion can make you feel good.
No, that's amazing. And did your father encourage you to pursue that career? Like, was he really behind you all the way, or go, no, get away from it, Melina, don't get into it?
No, he never discouraged me, but he also, both my parents have always been, you do what you want to do. Thank God, because I'm not very good on a leash. But what I loved was that when I was 17, I said I want to work for your dad, because you think, oh, that's a good cop out, or does someone work for you? And my dad said to me, I love you, but until you go and get work experience elsewhere, and then I see you as a good employee, you're not going to work for me. And at the time, I was a bit crushed,
Yeah.
but it was good, tough love, because I paved my own way, and I'm definitely not who I am because of where I've come from. I haven't ridden my dad's coattails by any means. So I love that it was tough love, but very much my biggest cheerleader now.
Oh, that's brilliant. And as well, being not in your father's shadows meant that you could forge something your way. And that would, I imagine, not being in your shoes, but I imagine that would give you a whole lot of self-worth as well, going, I did that and I didn't rely on, the name of my father to get me to where I am.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think I've seen, growing up, I was around a lot of events. I was around a lot of fashion events. I was around a lot of business meetings. I was around a lot. I was exposed to so much as a little girl and as a teenager. And I really learned early on, I'd see whether they were rich kids or kids of designers or kids of own people. And I just saw that they just didn't have an appreciation for where they've come from. And the power of being your own person. And I just never wanted to be that person ever. That doesn't fulfill me at all. Being known as someone else's offspring, or trying to just get something because I know someone. It's not, it's so much more self-worth.
We've found that for some people, COVID is a blessing in disguise. For others, it was the absolute opposite. But it was something that was very important for the growth of your own brand, Style Me Over. And did the sudden growth of your business take you by surprise during that COVID?
It really did. Like everyone, the day, I'll never forget, it was March 19, and I heard on the radio that we're going into whatever was a lockdown. And I remember I was driving with my kids. I'd taken them out for the day down here in Victoria to the peninsula. And I was by myself. My husband was away for a boys' weekend. And my intuition was just like, how can we make this work? That's how my brain operates. And my intuition, as it's always guided me, was like, you need to get on live and talk to your community tonight, because everyone's going to be really scared. And what you can offer is your positive energy. That's all I heard. And what I realized through COVID was I had something that I didn't realize I had, and that no one else was giving. And that was a place for people to come and be while everyone was locked down, whatever, Australia wide. And I was able to serve my community and build and connect with them authentically in a way that I'd never really done in my business before. So because of that, my business grew 300%. It was ridiculous.
Wow.
It was ridiculous. And I also took calculated risks. Like, most fashion businesses were like, oh my God, I'm not going to do anything, or I'm not going to buy any more stock because no one's got money, and just buy into the media. Whereas I pivoted and went, okay, everyone's at home. What do they need? Women are addicted to shopping and are addicted to feel good. It's a dopamine hit. So I'm now going to design a collection that they can wear at home, that's going to be comfortable, make them feel good and affordable. So I pretty much changed my entire line. The prices were $20, $30 less. I bought smarter. I created differently. I took them on the journey. And I was so surprised to the fact that I couldn't keep up. And whilst it was amazing on one hand, and I had someone that I knew that kept, taking passive aggressive swipes at me, like, well, at least you can stay open. It was like, I felt like saying bitch. It's much easier to stay home
Mm.
and like be sorry for yourself than me trying to save my business and save the families that are connected to it, because I couldn't get a subsidy from the government because I was still turning over a certain amount of money, which wasn't going to be enough if I didn't do something. So it took me by surprise. Yes, it was amazing, but I actually couldn't keep up. And then I ended up having to hire an extra 8 people. And then that meant more people to manage as well as
Yeah.
homeschool.
Yeah.
It was chaotic. And that's what led me to be burnt out by the end of it. So I
Mm.
was very surprised. I'm very grateful because more than anything, I was able to connect with more women than I ever have before. And I still have women stop me in the street and say that I helped get them through COVID. And that to me is worth more than the sales that I did.
Oh, that's pretty special to hear that.
Oh, yeah, that's why I do what I do. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I found that this mantra helped me through the whole time. And it was, I am the phoenix that rises from the ashes. That was what I literally would chant to myself. I would chant to my team. And I was like, I'm rising from the ashes. And so I literally lent into that energy and I was like, I can do this. That's all I kept saying. So how did I do it? I was working crazy hours, like crazy. Not something that I would recommend, but that's how I got through it. I would homeschool during the day, and then my husband would put the kids to bed when he'd get home because we were still able to work because of our lines of business. And then I would start working at 8 p.m. and work till 3 o'clock in the morning.
Oh,
And yeah, I would literally be smashing out stories, talking to suppliers because they were up till midnight as well. I'd be writing my emails to my staff, my directives, and then I would be up by 7:30 and doing it all over again with like calls in between. And it was really, really hard. The burnout came and it came on thick by the end of it because your body can't sustain that sort of lack of sleep and adrenaline rush.
mm.
Yeah. But I did it.
That's for the first time when you started saying, and then you gave that timeline going, that is not sustainable. And this is from someone who gets into bed at 9 o'clock, and I think that's a late night. 3 o'clock to me is probably something I could do once or twice a year, and I suffer incredibly. So how you manage
Yeah.
that for such a long time. So what suggestions do you have for women to make peace with their body again and feel more comfortable and confident in their own skin?
I think the first thing is to look in the mirror and make friends with her. And I think that, and I go through this every day. So don't think that I'm sitting here going, I love my body. It's so amazing. That little voice that when you look in the mirror, it goes, oh, look at your fat arms. Oh my God, look at your fat gut. Look at your, like it starts you. So my number one tip would be when you hear that voice in your head, you say, I'm not listening to you. This body's gone through a lot. She carries me every single day. And if you've had children, you know, be grateful for that. And if you haven't, then this is just the way I am. I go through it every day. And what my suggestion is buy bigger knickers. Buy bigger knickers that are higher.
I had their sensible knickers now.
Well, mine aren't sensible. Mine are sexy still, right?
I've got
Mine
a
are
couple of
sexy.
those as well.
Yeah, but I don't wear that. Yeah, well, it depends when you wear them, right? I wear mine just because, right? I don't wear them just in case I'm going to get lucky, right? I wear my knickers, right? So my second thing is go buy clothes that fit you now.
Yep.
Stop trying to fit into the wardrobe that doesn't fit you at the moment, because all it does is it makes you feel ashamed of yourself and then you go and hide. So you do two things. You either own it or you do something about it, okay? I'm sort of at the moment in between. I've owned it for a while. Now I'm over the roles and the fact that I've got like a bit of a, an upa, the upper punani area. So I'm like, okay, I haven't really exercised. Let's try doing that. So I now I'm doing something about it. So managing the self-talk and the mindset in the mirror, number one, and telling the bitch to go away, not welcome, and be grateful for your healthy body, because there's a lot of women that would love that. The second thing I would say is to buy clothes. And if you can't afford them at the moment, that's fine. Buy affordable interim pieces, like a new pair of jeans that fit, the right top that fits. Shirts are really fantastic. You can wear them in a lot of sexy ways at the moment. Shirts are my best friends at the moment. And buy underwear that fits you. So I've gone up a full bra size. I've gone up a full knicker size. I've actually started wearing G-strings for the first time in like 15 years because they actually are more complimentary on a curvier, bigger bottom, which is what my shape is. I'm a pair. And I've gone for high-waisted ones. So I get that, it tucks in a little bit of the oopa, but I still feel sexy.
So hang on, what do you call oopa?
Oopa, your upper punani area.
Right. Okay. Yes.
Yeah, we've all got one,
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
that nice, that nice puffy bit.
Mm.
The third thing I would suggest is really thinking about how you want to feel in your wardrobe, not how you think you should dress because of age or because of your ever evolving body, but more so how you want to feel. So I believe that you can feel anything you want to feel, not dependent on your age. So I'm 41. I still want to feel sexy. I want to feel sophisticated, and I want to feel edgy. And then I make sure that my clothes represent that for how my body is at the moment.
Mm. How do you get
So,
the confidence piece though? Because you're someone who's always probably worn clothes that might be, sexier or more out there, because fashion is your, is your jam. So what about somebody who is trying to find their style? Who what do you suggest? Is it really in your head? Is it trying on different clothes and seeing what makes you feel good? But you still, I suppose it's no man's land sometimes, because again, maybe this is the self-talk that you've got to bloody slap out of the way. It's just that there's so many clothes out there that are designed in reality for a young, early 20s or late teenage woman, and not so much. And then you see some of the frumpier stuff that's, on offer for older women. And you kind of, you're never going to be there. You don't want that, but you can't.
Yes.
Yeah. So how do you find that style?
It's a really great question. And how I would answer it this way is, number one is don't look at the sizes. So, for example, I bought a slip dress the other day, and I went up 2 sizes to a size 14, and I'm not a size 14. I'm a size 10. I'm a 10 to 12. I'm like an 11 at the moment. So the first thing is to not remove any emotional connection to what the size is, because you've got to remember with fashion, the brand decides what sort of woman they want in that brand. Okay. So a lot of brands, unfortunately, will say we want petite younger women, or we want a petite shape, right? So they only create styles that fit that shape. But then you've got someone that might be in their 50s that are like, hold on a second, I still want to feel sexy and beautiful. I know I am, yes, my body's changed, but I don't want to be wearing goddamn Noni B or Miller's just yet. I want to be wearing something that makes me feel sexy and beautiful. So then you need to go, okay, well, what do I feel good in? Not what is the trend and not what are my friends wearing, but what makes me feel good. So I learned a really long time ago, before I became a personal stylist, that I feel really great in jeans. Jeans are my thing. Okay, they're fitted. They make me feel like I've got a happy ass. They lift my bum. They're nice and tight. I feel secure in it, and I love a cami because I like a little bit of cleavage. So I then will work my wardrobe around that combination, either with shirts or camis or blazers. So then I can create a mix and match wardrobe. But if you're someone who loves dresses, and you need to look in your wardrobe and say, okay, do these dresses make me feel the 3 words that I want to feel? Or you might go, I love dresses, but why do I have a shitload of skirts and jeans? I need to go buy dresses. So it's about understanding what makes you feel good. Because years ago, when I used to party in my 20s, I had a group of girlfriends, they're still my girlfriends, but they're all really petite. They're petite in height, they're petite in size. And they all wore these really little girly feminine skirts and dresses, and they were in fashion. I thought, I probably should wear that too, because that's what you think you need to do. You follow a trend because you want to fit in. That's what we do. You can say you don't want to, but we do. We want to belong. And I never forget being this one particular night, being out, and I just was so uncomfortable in my own skin. And I was like, why do I feel uncomfortable? I look great. I bought a new outfit, and I realized I don't know how to dance in little skirts. I'm too ballsy for it. I'm too edgy. And I was like a stunned mullet standing at the bar, leaning over, trying to work out which leg to lean on in a little dress. I just realized in that moment, this is what women do. We wear things to fit in, and we don't feel ourselves. So that's why I designed a process in my business where, when I style women one-on-one, the first thing I ask, and more to your point of how do you feel confident, is how do you want to feel when you leave the house? You're at the front door and you're about to leave. What are 3 words? And it's an emotion. It's never about if I was younger, if I was more beautiful, if my hair was longer. None of those variables matter. It's how I want to feel. So I always ask myself that. And you can have different types of emotional profiles, but my main one is always, I want to feel sexy, I want to feel sophisticated, and I want to feel edgy. And then I will dress that up and down, no matter what. My someone else, it might be I want to feel feminine and classic and sophisticated. Well, then you need to be having shirts and blazers and maybe a little bit of floral in there. And then when you wear things that make you feel good and they fit in the right size, you're going to be confident.
Yeah.
The confidence comes from feeling good in your body.
Mm. Yeah. Makes total sense.
It's actually quite simple when we stop trying to make it be that you need to be the loudest person in the room, the one with the perfect hair, the one that looks like schmick and, you know, like someone off an Instagram post, because that's not confident.
Yep.
Confident is feeling really comfortable and unapologetic in your own skin and giving zero Fs what anyone thinks because you feel good.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I hope when different women are listening to this and they think about those 3 words every time that they walk out of that door, how do you want to feel? Yeah, that's a great message. Well, you are a gorgeous soul, and I've loved having this chat with you today. And thank you so much for your time and sharing all of the things so openly, as I knew you would be a very open book, but so
always,
open. And I
always
really appreciate it.
My absolute pleasure. I feel like you and I could just keep talking.
Oh, we
hours.
could indeed. We'll have to do it again soon in person. Pleasure.
Absolutely.
Thanks so much for listening and sharing your time with me today. I'd love you to hit subscribe on Apple Podcast or your favourite podcast app to keep spreading these empowering messages. Please share this podcast with other incredible midlife women in your world. Join me again next week for another redefining midlife conversation. Thanks again for tuning in.